In the 70s, we had Peugeot, Anamco, and other companies, Volkswagen, producing in Nigeria.
And generally, anything that affects the economy has a direct impact on also the performance of the automobile industry.
The Nigerian automobile industry is indeed unique.
And when we are talking about the automotive industry, we are talking about everything on wheel.
What we are implementing is a national automotive industrial development plan.
Federal government never cancelled auto policy in Nigeria.
I think they have a very huge responsibility. The relationship is actually supposed to be that of more of a regulator and a controller.
We are committed to developing the automotive sector by providing the necessary supporting legal framework.
And this is the core mandate of the council.
The Nigerian automotive sector has been undergoing a revamping process in recent years to ensure it takes its place as one of the most thriving automotive industries in the world. The sector was very productive in the 70s and 80s, with brands such as Amanco, Peugeot, Volkswagen, and other global brands producing more than 100,000 vehicles locally every year, thus creating jobs for thousands of Nigerians. The crisis came in the late 80s when the price of crude oil fell below optimal standards and drastically affected the entire economy of the country.
In the 70s, we had Peugeot, Anamco, and other companies, Volkswagen, producing in Nigeria. Around about 1986, the price of crude oil that the country was so dependent on dropped from about $26 down to $10. That completely negatively affected the economy. People couldn't buy new cars anymore, and those companies that were in operation back then had to close down.
This company started operation in the year 1975, and it peaked around 1985 when the company was producing up to 60,000 vehicles in a year. And incidentally, around that year of 1988, there were issues which basically had to do with the crashing of the price of crude oil, and that actually affected the economy.
If you are aware of the history of auto industry in Nigeria and the global trend, you will know that some countries started many years ago, like 120 years ago, and Nigeria precisely started in the early 70s, and Nigeria was doing well up to the 80s.
The problem that are attendant on a developing country where infrastructure is not totally in place made it difficult for those automobile companies to thrive for long.
And generally, anything that affects the economy has a direct relationship, impact on also the performance of the automobile industry. So based on that, actually the whole of the companies in the industry had a lot of problems, and that was how PAN itself also was affected greatly, and the production went down to the level that it was not producing up to even 1,000 vehicles in a year.
The situation impacted negatively on the automotive sector to the point that production of vehicles dropped to less than 20,000 per annum, leading the automotive brands to fold up.
The other thing that militated against us was the fact of capacity utilization. Being a heavy investment industry, the overheads are very high. So you need to be using your capacity to the fullest to bring your unit cost to a reasonable level. Because our market was so small and made even smaller by the import of used cars, we found that we were producing too few a unit to compete on a unit cost level with these other countries. So over time, we found that it was easier to buy an imported car than to buy a locally produced car. And over time, the companies could not cope anymore, and they folded up one by one.
The recent drive to revamp the sector became very necessary considering the huge potentials the industry has in terms of availability of raw materials, huge market potentials, human resource capital, to mention but just a few. The NADDC, led by Jelani Aliyu, is working tooth and nail to ensure that in no distant time, the clogs in the wheels of automotive industry is removed once and for all, and ensure more than ever that Nigeria begins vehicle production in the country as against importation.
Well, the mandate of NADC is very simple. NADC is to regulate and supervise the automotive industry in Nigeria. And when we're talking about the automotive industry, we are talking about everything on wheel, which include motorcycle, bicycle, tricycle, and vehicles. So the responsibility of the NADDC is to provide supervisory and regulatory role, particularly made in Nigeria automobiles.
In a nutshell, the mandate of NADDC is to promote the production of vehicles within the borders of Nigeria, to keep the jobs in the country, and to offer brand new vehicles to Nigerians, as opposed to supporting the importation of fully built vehicles, which would in effect would have provided and created jobs outside Nigeria.
NADDC as a company or as a body that regulates what we do, I think they have a very huge responsibility. The relationship is actually supposed to be that of more of a regulator and a controller. So they do much to guide us on what we should do and what we should not do. What we are just praying is to see how they can be empowered.
The vision obviously cannot be achieved in one fell swoop. So there are, of course, the short-term and long-term strategy.
The emphasis is actually on made in Nigeria automobiles. Because we're encouraging made in Nigerian vehicles as against imported vehicles. And this is the core mandate of the council.
To achieve this, the NADDC has launched what it calls the National Automotive Industrial Development Plan, as well as review the auto policy in Nigeria, which needs to be improved upon to cover current trends and also include a wholesome solution that provides inclusiveness of every aspect of the automotive industry.
In 2013, there was an effort to revive the industry through the 2013 auto policy. Looking at this auto policy, you see that it has long-term and short-term vision.
What NADDC has done and has done extremely well is helped to put in place an auto policy. When the NAIDP was passed by the federal government, it was NADDC that championed the auto policy being put in place. It is also saddled with the responsibility of implementing it.
What we are implementing is a National Automotive Industrial Development Plan, which has 5 cardinal elements: investment promotion, development of infrastructure, improvement of skills, market development, and ensuring that Nigeria has minimum standards. So these are the 5 key elements that NADDC is implementing.
And oftentimes, people usually mistake certain facts. Like recently, I heard people saying that the federal government have cancelled the auto policy in Nigeria. Federal government never cancelled auto policy in Nigeria. What happened was that the federal government looked at the policy after National Assembly had passed the bill, waiting for presidential assent. Then the presidency looked at it and said, no, there are several components, particularly the fiscal regime, that need to be streamlined and accommodated in the new auto policy. That is why the Ministry of Industries have gone back to work.
Furthermore, the NADDC is creating synergy with all manufacturers, stakeholders in the automotive industry, related government agencies, and the private sector in a bid to enumerate ways of properly eradicating the setbacks that have impeded the proper development of the automotive sector. From January 2020, many meetings have been held to properly review the auto policy, affording various stakeholders to make inputs in developing a policy document that will stand the test of time and create a foundation on which the industry can grow. The resolutions made in the new auto policy is currently being deliberated upon by the National Assembly. To promote local manufacturing of automotive components, the NADDC has ensured that local manufacturers enjoy lots of incentives that will enable them produce at lowest possible costs per thousands to compete favorably with foreign brands.
The NAIDP, that is Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan, has a series of incentives and protective measures aimed at developing the Nigerian automotive industry.
So now with the NAIDP, we have brought back production into Nigeria from zero now to about 10,000 a year, growing. So we've brought back production into Nigeria, and the potential is getting bigger and bigger.
Well, I think even though not fully operational, because I wouldn't say the policy is fully approved, but even as remote as it is, it has helped us a great deal, because if you look at the incentives that are given to actual local manufacturers, where if you are producing at CKD level, you are not going to be charged any duty. If you are going to be producing at SKD1 level, you are going to be charged only 10%. While if somebody is producing who is not a manufacturer, if somebody is importing vehicle, he is going to be charged at 35 plus 35%, that is about 70%.
We've had a lot more investment coming to the sector. We are now able to showcase locally assembled vehicles, and they are also busy trying to put in place measures to control the kind of vehicles that are produced and the various safety and statutory measures that should be in those to ensure that the public are buying vehicles that are safe and efficient for the purpose for which they are meant.
Just recently, on the 30th of the last month, 29th, we have a stakeholders meeting at Nigerian Air Force Center in Kado, where we brought together manufacturers and assemblers of bicycle, motorcycle and tricycle to discuss their role in the industry. Then the next day, which was 30th, we have a general stakeholders that involve them and all people in the automotive industry, from the government to the private sector and friends of the industry together, where we discussed the review of the auto policy, which is the Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan, and the proposed automotive industry bill.
We felt the need, or we saw the need, to actually sit down and review that policy. Review the policy to actually make sure that it gives the necessary support to the local manufacturers. So there are many areas that we believe that area of the incentive, also making punitive charges on second-hand vehicles, especially because they are our main competitors. So what can you do to actually prevent too much influx of such vehicles? We want the policy to take care of that.
The essence of coming together was to dissect, discuss and bring up a document that will have all stakeholder buy-in and key-in, so that we'll have a document that when it is presented to the government, to the National Assembly for consideration as an executive bill, it will have a free sale.
This initiative is also supported by the resolution of government to purchase made-in-Nigerian vehicles. The ultimate goal of government and the NADDC is to ensure that every Nigerian can afford a made-in-Nigeria vehicle. To this end, the NADDC has included as part of its policy an auto finance scheme, which is in a single-digit interest loan for Nigerians to be able to afford brand new made-in-Nigeria vehicles in place of already used foreign vehicles.
The affordability of the automobiles in Nigeria is also a major concern of the Naddc, because a situation where even when the vehicles are produced here and are not affordable, it becomes even difficult for our people to even patronize made in Nigeria vehicles.
Again, we want to see a possibility where government comes in and say, okay, the major challenge we're having in Nigeria today, why the size of the new cars market in Nigeria is low, is because of affordability. Many people cannot be able to afford buy new cars. So if the government can come in with provision of under the same kind of intervention fund to provide credit vehicle purchase facilities at single-digit interest rates, the same intervention fund given to us as a company or as industries, we are given the intervention funds as single-digit interest rate, and then people, the customers out there that are going to buy vehicles, are allowed to also access such vehicle purchase facilities at single-digit interest rate. So you can see the two sides of it. On the side of us as companies, we will have the capacity to produce more capacity utilization will be increased. Again, on the side of the buyers, because if we produce more and the affordability of the customers there to buy is not there, it's useless. So, but if that facility is also granted to buyers at single-digit interest rate, then you will see even the purchasing capacity will now increase, and the more of them will be purchased, more will be produced, more will be purchased.
A situation where money will be given to Nigerians who want to purchase vehicles at a single-digit interest rate. So that when they buy these vehicles, it will revolve. They pay back after some time. Other people will also enjoy. But it has to be purely made in Nigerian vehicles. So that's another way of promoting the made in Nigeria vehicles. And this scheme will soon be launched. It will soon be launched. People who are qualified, who are working, who have things that are doing, money will be provided for them to buy vehicles.
Naddc currently is working with 3 banks. We have the Zenith Bank, which have indicated the interest to go into this scheme. We also have Wema and Jaiz Bank.
In tackling already inherent challenges facing the auto industry, the Naddc is also looking to develop and key into new trends springing up in the global automotive industry through its research and development departments.
Ultimately, what every nation will want is to produce its own vehicle, and that can only be attained through R&D, research and development, local content development. So in that line, the council also has a program for developing Nigerian car and also attracting some major global players.
This is already a deliberate plan by the Naddc to transfer knowledge to indigenous auto manufacturing entities as well as our teeming youth population to gain first-hand technical skills in managing electric vehicles by partnering with various universities in the country.
The world is moving away from internal combustion engines, and we have various types of internal combustion engines. There are those that use petrol, there are those that use diesel, and there are those that use compressed natural gas. And when the world is becoming aware that such vehicles pose great danger to the environment by virtue of the emissions they pass to the environment when these fuels are burnt. So gradually the world is shifting from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles.
We're also working towards electrification of vehicles. You know, the purest form of transportation would be electric vehicles, zero emissions. So we're doing research into that. We've started the design development of a hybrid electric vehicle, which we hope that would set the standards in affordable, advanced, technologically enabled vehicles in Nigeria. We're also about to start an EV pilot program with 3 universities, University of Nsukka, University of Lagos, and Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, to begin to understand the opportunities, challenges, and ways to adapt electric vehicles to Nigerian conditions. So we will be deploying electric vehicles at each of these universities. We'll expose our students to this new technology, and hopefully they get to understand it better in ways that would allow them to even develop better systems for the country. This would also allow us to gather the necessary information needed towards an electric vehicle policy to further support the production and usage of electric vehicles in the country.
With electric vehicles, the parts are sure. There is no petrol to be burnt. There is no diesel to be burnt. There is no fuel to be burnt. It uses electric in its operation. It's very quiet, and the maintenance is also quite less compared to vehicles that use internal combustion engine to move on.
Actually, it is very true that where you have electric vehicles, they are more environmentally friendly. In fact, they are even cheaper to maintain, like you have mentioned. But when you look at the Nigeria of today now, you don't even have the facilities to service those cars in terms of where the charging points or the charging stations. We don't even have them existing in Nigeria today. And when you look at even the epileptic supply of the electricity in Nigeria, how are we going to service them? That is even when you go to the urban areas. Talk less of when you are going to the rural areas.
When it comes to jumping into electric vehicles, to do it or not is not a matter of whether Nigeria is ready or not. That is where the world is headed. So all vehicles are going electric. So we either find ways to make it work for us, or we might as well go back to riding horses and donkeys. But I believe it's really not that a huge challenge as people think it is. Because the whole objective is to clean up the environment. And we have an advantage in creating and developing and leveraging renewable energy in sort of powering our vehicles and homes. So I believe this is an opportunity for us to leverage solar power, wind power, to generate that electric energy needed to feed these vehicles. And electric vehicles are actually simpler and easier to maintain. So I believe in the long run they'll be better for Nigerians. And Nigerians love cars. So if it is electricity that powers our cars, it'll probably inspire us to very quickly come up with solutions to this power problem.
Next year, by this time, if you come here, you will see a lot of improvements on what we have done. I had mentioned earlier that the one we have produced can run at 10 kilometers per hour. But when you come here next year, perhaps we may hit 50, 60 kilometers per hour, heading towards 100 kilometers per hour.
There is no doubt that the automotive industry in Nigeria has enormous potentials. Every activity of the NADDC is to ensure that we tap from the potential and create a viable industry that will place Nigeria in the spotlight amongst the community of nations, both economically, technologically, and otherwise. It is therefore safe to say that the future of the automotive industry is bright. In the next episode, we shall look into other policy issues of the auto industry in Nigeria and what the NADDC is doing to fix them. Join us.